Welcome to Season 4 and Episode 2 of the Beached White Male Podcast. And I'm your host, Kemp. Today, I've got Dr. Shandra McDonald, and we're going to talk about academic survival. That's right, we're taking a little different tack as we open the year 2023. It's been a while now since I was in the classroom, but I'll tell you, I know a lot of folks who ought to be there, who want to be there, and who are there struggling to make it all work. If it's not you, you know somebody who is there. And that's why I want you to hear my good friend Shandra McDonald. She is a fellow podcaster now and a student success strategist. But it hasn't always been easy for Shandra.
There was never a doubt for me that I was going to graduate from high school. That was never a doubt. My ability to read was never gonna hinder me from graduating from high school. But once I got into college, the pace and the volume of work, I was like, in order for me to actually comprehend this, I have to slow it down. And I didn't think I could do it.
Yes, but you've probably guessed by now that Shandra did. She is Dr. Shandra McDonald. She's taken it all the way from high school to bachelor's degree to master's degree and now to her doctorate. And she's got a passion now to help others get there too. Well, I want to welcome you today to the Beached White Male Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. You know by now that this is a place where people tell their stories of awakenings. And not only has Shandra experienced her own, but she wants others to find those aha moments where the light turns on. So I think you're going to enjoy this conversation with my good friend. So I hope you'll stay with us right here on the Beached White Male Podcast. I've really been looking forward to having Dr. Shandra McDonald on my podcast. And today, we're going to talk about academic survival. The two of us met on a civil rights tour of the South back in 2019. As she says it, Shandra's strategy took her from clueless to cum laude. We're going to talk about the unique challenges facing students with academic ambitions. And we're going to explore Shandra's powerful personal story. As I said, she's earned 3 college degrees, a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice, a Master of Public Administration, and a Doctor of Public Administration. She entered federal service under the Outstanding Scholars Program, served as an adjunct professor, and she appears often as a guest lecturer. She's the author of a very helpful book. It's called Academic Survival: Simple Strategies for Improving Your Grades. She's a contributing author in a textbook that is used in government. So we're going to talk about those goals that for too many seem unattainable. Not for Shandra. All right then, enough for me. Let's get to my conversation with Dr. Shandra McDonald. All right, everybody, just like I promised, I have Dr. Shandra McDonald on the line. Welcome to the Beached White Male Podcast, Shandra McDonald. I'm so glad you're here.
Yay! Thank you for having me.
And thank you for taking time with me, Shandra. We've had a great friendship, but you know, your voice is going to be familiar to my listeners, particularly those who got into that wonderful series I was blessed to do. We called it Truth Quest, and every one of those 6 episodes starts with the voice of Shandra McDonald saying, and can you do it for me? Just give me a little of that opener. Do you remember?
Welcome to Truth Quest with your host, Kemp.
See, there it is. And it was so much fun. I mean, we knew each other pretty well, and I forget exactly how we tripped over this thing. But I found out that you like to do voiceovers, and you're a podcaster now. So when did you kind of discover that you actually had a voice for quality audio?
Okay, well, let's see. I I did something when I was really little. I used to have a
Wow.
show that
No way.
yeah, as a matter of fact, it wasn't a show that that I distributed to anyone. It was just me and one of my friends.
Oh, I
And
hope it's out there. I hope we can still hear it. What was it about? You're a little girl. What did you do?
so we used to have I used to have a recorder, the old school recorder where you had to hit like play and record at the same time and then like load the tape deck on top and
I
slam
remember
it down.
those.
Yeah.
Like the
So I used to
cassette tape thing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I used to have a show that today would probably be called a podcast, but it wasn't called that then. And it was just the show was called The Farting Frogs. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
The farting frog.
The farting frog. So as you can imagine, we were in elementary school. And my friend used to have one of those things. I think it's called a whoopee cushion where you fill it up with air and then
So
you sit on it.
you had the actual sound effects. You were doing the sound effects.
Oh yes. Like now today's podcast, you can hit buttons and get air horns. No. We had to blow up the whoopee cushion thing and then sit on it. We had to sit on it in order to record the sound.
And then, of course, the laughter of you two girls and whoever else was within the vicinity.
Yeah.
That's kind of what made it.
Yeah. But recently I had, two different people on two separate occasions. I had, a coach tell me, like we were in a meeting on a Zoom meeting and in the, he DM'd me during the meeting and he's like, when are you going to start your podcast? And I was like, I never said I was going to start a podcast. Like, why is he sending me this message? And then I was working with the sound engineer for, trying to get my space suitable for, doing voiceover work. And while he was walking me through a number of things, he was like, by the way, you have a really good podcasting voice. I was like, really? Why do you say that? He's like, yes, it's very clear. And he just went on and gave me some information about my voice. And I was like, okay. Well, and years ago, I'd always wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't have a subject. When I say years ago, I want to say when podcasting, before it got to be what it is today, I was like, I want a show. I just don't know what to talk about, but I totally want a show. Now I have something to talk about.
And you have one. And you have one now. And you know, that is so cool. And he was right. You've got a beautiful voice. And, and I never really, I kind of always wanted to do a podcast. I mean, I've always enjoyed, listening to, people tell stories and things like that. And I kind of thought of myself as I want to be a storyteller. Mm-hmm. But you might remember, because we met each other through the Civil Rights Tour and the Center for Racial Reconciliation over there. We went on a tour together a couple of years ago. But you remember Mark Chase, our friend Mark Chase. Whenever we get on one of those group calls, he always introduces me as Radio Ken, and it makes me laugh. So I give him a little WMBI AM and FM in Chicago, which is a radio station at my Bible school in Chicago way back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, we're going to talk about that podcast today. We're going to get into your background and especially the subject matter of your podcast. So I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Me too. Thank you.
Because there's so many things that we talk about. In fact, I remember talking a little bit about the FAA in those early days for you, but you've gone on to do a whole lot of things. And in addition to your work and your profession, you have you've gone on and you've been a real a person of accomplishment in the academic arena. And we're going to get into some of those particulars. But you've also developed a real passion for helping people achieve in that world. And you've come up with a podcast, and and you've just launched it. And we want to promote the heck out of that thing today, because I think it's a great thing that you're doing. You call it academic survival. Let's start there, Shandra. How did you come up with that idea?
Well, as far as what the title of the podcast?
Yeah, the whole concept.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to show you something. I know your guests won't be able to see it, but I'm going to show you something. Look at that.
Yes, that's a book by Shandra L. McDonald, Academic Survival.
So I wrote a book called Academic Survival many, many moons ago.
Oh, so that's been around for a while.
Yeah, it's like it's not even in circulation anymore. You cannot get it. But so I just decided to take that name and use that name for the podcast.
The purpose of the podcast is, why don't you tell us about that?
So Academic Survival is me interviewing college freshmen, but then not just limiting it to college freshmen, also interviewing college students and former college students. But the whole purpose of it is to really help the college freshman who is perhaps feeling like they're in over their head or maybe wants to give up, but just basically giving them some tools like you can get past the first year. So the majority of students who do drop out of college do so in the first year. And so that's why I'm targeting college freshmen. And it was my hardest year in college. That first year, I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to make it. Sure that I was going to survive it. And I did. And so that's why like my passion is like, hey, for that college freshman, like, don't give up, just stick it out. It will get easier.
Well, you've got a number of interviews completed now that are ready to be released as you produce them, and I'm not sure what your pace is going to be. But I was able to listen to your first podcast, and it really was a wonderful conversation. This young woman who is she really wants to get involved in law enforcement. She's got I think a dual major going in psychology, and you really had a great way of just getting her to talk about her goals and what she's trying to do, and also some of the challenges that she's faced. And I just thought that was such a powerful thing because, like you, I just really believe in education. I think it's so important. But there are lots of barriers, a lot of key things that keep capable people from accomplishing what would really be helpful to them and for their whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. So my first episode was Amara Watson, the double major.
Yes.
I have on future episodes I have a Velmar Amador Langster, and she is at UC San Diego, and she is double majoring as well, double majoring or has a major and a minor. Anyhow, but her story is really about like emotional well-being, like her. Like just plugging through high school, plugging through to the extent to where she didn't really make a lot of friends because she was so academically focused, and her deciding that she was not going to be that type of student when she was in college, that she wanted to be able to have friendships when she finished. And so her first week of school was all about making sure that she established that friendships. And now that she has them, that she, with like the extent to which it's helping her emotional well-being. Then I have, a student, Daryl Horn, who is at Cal State Northridge, and he wants to be an entertainer. So he has some really interesting words of wisdom, and he's really young. He started high school. He skipped a grade. So he is 17, I believe, 17 in high school. I'm sorry, 17 in college. Then I've interviewed, Nico Morales, who is an individual who's going to be talking about substance abuse and the journey that took him on. Let's see, who else do I have? Someone who started college as a freshman, realized that they was in a business school, wanting to become like a banker, and realizing that this is not what I want to do. And so quitting school and starting all over, getting into the Berklee School of Music.
Wow.
And,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I've known several students from Berklee, and that's wow, what a great accomplishment for him to have landed a place there.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really cool. And it's actually quite a funny interview because part of the interview, so it's like totally show my ignorance. A part of the interview, I actually thought he was at Cal Berklee.
You thought it was Cal Berklee.
Yes.
I made the same mistake. It's spelled differently. I think it's Berklee.
Yes.
But it's one of the finest music and arts schools in the country. And it's such a fun, high energy place.
Yeah.
And so
good for
him.
Yeah. So when I realized that, that's a funny episode because when I realized that, I was like, I need to phone a friend. And so I called up a friend who has a music background, and I allowed her to get in the chair with me and kind of like share the interview. And crazy
Nice.
enough, she had also auditioned for Berkeley
Wow.
School of Music and had gotten in, but for financial reasons, she couldn't attend.
Yeah, it's a pricey school.
Yeah. And then one last thing I want to mention is I have an interview coming up. I actually haven't conducted this one yet, but it'll be next week. I'm interviewing someone who got pregnant in college. And so we're going to talk about that. And she didn't have the baby while she was in college, but she had the baby afterward. But her senior year in college, she was pregnant. So I'm going to be able to talk about that story as well. So I really want to I want to bring stories that will talk about college life, like certain challenges that students will face. And I want students to be able to hear from other students. And I also want them to hear from people who have walked who have successfully completed that journey and are coming back to tell their stories in terms of how they did it.
Nice. Well, I'm expecting and I'm hoping that people who are listening to this right now are having the same experience I did when I spoke to you, because when I heard you kind of lay out your plan and your passion, I thought of more than one or two people that I thought, oh man, they've got to listen to this podcast and tap into what Shandra is doing, because, it's one thing for a guy my age to, give advice about what people ought to do and but for, like, I'm thinking of my own grandkids to sit down and listen to other 18, 19, 20-year-olds talk in real terms about what they're experiencing as they go off to college, they sit in class, the new social context that they're in. I just think that is so powerful and so good. Shandra, I know you've been on your own academic track, and I would like to hear your story. And I'm wondering, when you were young, was it just assumed that you were going to go off to college and you're going to be a big success? Or what kind of support did you have around you? What was it like? I can see you laughing now. This is going to be good.
Oh my gosh. So I am the child of a mother who was one of two of her school's valedictorians, right? They had two of them. And yet that was like academic achievement was not like that just was not part of my background. I struggled a lot academically. Particularly, I struggled with reading.
So you're saying that your mother was an accomplished student, and you knew that,
Yes.
but
Yes.
you just couldn't keep up with maybe what expectation was there on yourself, or maybe that she put on you.
No, she didn't. My mom was very easygoing. She didn't put a lot of demands on me one way or another, just that, that I listen and obey, but she didn't set expectations for me that were unattainable. She just kind of like let me figure things out on my own,
But you struggled, particularly with reading.
I did. I struggled with reading. So what I do recall her telling me is, go back in your room and don't come out until you know how to spell those words.
Wow. I
remember that. And I remember, I struggled a lot with reading, like really bad. And I have, oh my gosh, I have proof of what I'm getting ready to tell you, but I won't show it to you now. So in the 4th grade, I got a D in reading. And
you're 9 years old and you're dealing with a D.
I'm dealing with a D in reading. And so, some people might think that D stands for dummy, but I knew I wasn't dumb. So I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And at the end of the year, I got a D+.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So that's like what my journey looked like. And so now, now the D stands for doctorate, certainly not dummy. But I can tell you that like I had a hard time reading, and it wasn't until I was actually in my doctoral program that I learned why. So literally I went through so many years from fourth grade on, because I never became a great reader. Like now I can read a lot. I mean, I could read really fast, but I won't be able to tell you what I read. So I have to really slow it down for comprehension. But I can tell you that had I not had that struggle with reading, I probably would not have come up with some of the solutions and strategies that I eventually had to use in order to survive college. Because that's really when the struggle got, there was never a doubt for me that I was going to graduate from high school. Like that was never a doubt. My ability to read was never going to hinder me from graduating from high school. But once I got into college, the pace and the volume of work, I was like, in order for me to actually comprehend this, I have to slow it down. And I didn't think I could do it. And so, it wasn't until I was in my, doctoral program that, a friend of mine said something to me. And that's when, so I'll tell you, he said to me, is something wrong with your eyes? I'm like, no, why? And so we had this dialogue and, little do you know, guess what? There was something wrong with my eyes. Oh. And so, and once it was diagnosed, it's called a verticalphoria. Once it was diagnosed and I went and read all about it, I was like, you're kidding me. I've had this my whole life. That's why it's been hard for me to read. It's been like, and so many of the,
help us know this is a breakthrough for you. Tell us what vertical aphoria is. Did I pronounce it?
Verticalphoria. So, yeah. So it literally means that, one of your eyes, can either sit like higher than the other or turn out more than the other. Either way, they'll call it a verticalphoria. And, it just basically means that I slightly, for me, because it's slight, I slightly see double. So imagine trying to read and you're seeing double, but it wasn't registering to me that I was seeing double. So literally I could read a line of text. And then when it's time for you to jump down to the next line and read, I'll stay on the same line. Like I'll read the same line. Like my eyes wouldn't track downward. And so, but no idea, because if you test my vision, I could have 20/20 vision.
So is this something that glasses can correct, or
yes? So
if it's understood that that's what needs correction.
If it's caught. So but for me it was never caught. So prisms. They'll give you glasses with a prism in it that will force your eyes to level out. And so when this is a funny story. So I was doing this, not funny, but I was doing this research on the Arab Spring. And there was a female reporter who had lost one of her eyes, and she had a patch over one of her eyes. She had lost one of her eyes through some explosion or something. And so she used to wear a patch over one of her eyes. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. You have two eyes for a reason. If you're going to function with just one eye, ideally it would be in the middle to help you balance, yes. Right? And I was like, but if it's not in the middle, if it's actually off to the side, then you would probably want to tilt your head like this and like that in order for it to be in the middle. I was like, oh, that's exactly what I do. There is something wrong with my eyes. So yeah, when I finally saw the doctor, it was like a really breakthrough moment, and I was all teary eyed, and he was just kind of like, like the doctor was just like, yeah, this is minor. Well, it's not minor for me. I mean, my whole life I've been dealing with this issue.
Well, let's talk about your track, because when you got through with high school, you went off to college. Yeah. Where did you go?
I went to Cal State Long Beach.
And what was the major that you went after?
Criminal justice with an emphasis in corrections. So I wanted to be a probation officer.
Interesting. Now, how far did you get into the program? Did you stay with it all the way through the bachelor's degree?
Yep. I knew when I was going off to college that I wanted to be a probation officer. There was a small moment where I thought, maybe I wanted to be an interior designer. And, I had a homework assignment in college, my freshman year, where we had to identify two professions and then actually interview someone who was actually working in that field. So I had to interview a probation officer, and I couldn't find an interior designer, but I found an interior decorator. And so I interviewed her. And after the 2 interviews, I was like, yeah, I definitely want to be a probation officer. And it was really, I think, a matter of the fact that the probation officer who I interviewed loved his job, and the interior designer that I interviewed did not love her job. And so, like, in hindsight, I think that was why one was better than the other, but I decided to just stick with the probation officer route, and yes, I stuck with criminal justice. Now, when I graduated, that's not the path that I went on, because I had another opportunity came up, and that opportunity actually came up because of my grades. I had the grades that I needed in order to qualify for this position. And again, had I not developed strategies to survive college, but not just survive, but actually improve my grades along the way. Because I was told that your freshman year in college is usually your best year in terms of your GPA, because each year as you start to take upper division courses, they get a little tougher. And so your GPA can start to slide. And so your freshman year is your best year. And I was like, well, my freshman year was awful. So if that was the best year, I'm going to have a rough road ahead. And, but I refused to accept that. And I think one of the things that I like to tell people is to, like, let go of other people's expectations. And so the fact that this person had said that, your freshman year is going to be your best year, I was like, that can't be the case. And so it was that day that I said, you know what? I wonder what my GPA would be if I decided to get straight A's the rest of the way. And I came very close to doing it.
Wow.
But, yeah.
Well, what we know from what you've told us is that you didn't really learn about this challenge you had based on the condition of your eyes. That these 4 years that you spent as an undergraduate, you were overcoming in spite of that limitation. And so as you look back, and particularly now as you're dealing with students who are becoming aware of their limitations, you had it, but you didn't even know what it was at the time. But how did you develop the disciplines that enabled you to go from a rough freshman year to almost straight A's as you pursued your focus?
Yeah, well, one of the things is that part of it was kind of like game on. Like, I felt like it was you can't tell me that like my freshman year is going to be was my best year. Like, I don't accept that. So part of it was just basically the challenge of it all. And there is, so I remember reading, and I don't remember where, but I remember reading that one of the reasons why most people are not millionaires is because it never was their goal. Having a goal says a lot for your journey. And so anyhow, I just decided to make straight A's getting straight A's a goal. I have no idea why I decided to do it, but I did. But once I did, I'd started making decisions that were consistent with that as a goal.
Beautiful. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because you talk in your book about, and I'm calling it a distinction between, at least the way we think, a distinction between goals and development, and developing the disciplines to achieve those goals. And we want to get to that. But before we do, let's just go down this academic track that you went down. You got your undergraduate degree. You were determined to be a probation officer. Your major was criminal justice. But because of your grades, some doors opened for you that caused you to move on to something other than becoming a probation officer. Tell us about that and how you got to the doctorate. I just want to get that out there for us to understand.
Okay, so I was on the track to I wanted to be, like I said, I wanted to be a probation officer, and one of the routes to becoming a probation officer is well, at the time was to go through the first work for the California Youth Authority. So I was testing with the California Youth Authority, and I remember I had my agility test one morning, and the day before my agility test, I got an offer in the mail from no, it wasn't. I can't remember if it was a phone call or no, I think it was a phone call that from the FAA. And
Wow.
so yeah, so
The
when
Federal Aviation Agency.
Federal Aviation
Administration.
Mhm. So when I was let's see, I had already graduated with my bachelor's and was working on my master's. And
So you had started a master's program.
I did. I had started
And what was that one?
public administration.
Public administration. But here comes the FAA and says, we need you.
And so, yes, we need you. No, actually, so the Career Development Center at Cal State Long Beach, the FAA was, had an announcement through the Career Development Center, and I ended up, listening to the announcement. It was an automated system. You used to have to call in and press 1 for part-time, press 2 for full-time. So I went through pressing the buttons, and, I heard that there was this job with the FAA through their Outstanding Scholars Program.
Nice.
You had to have a minimum GPA of a 3.5.
Nice.
And I did.
And you did.
Yeah. And that was
Sweet.
the only reason why I applied. I wasn't sure what the FAA even stood for. I just knew that I qualified, and I was like, how neat would it be to apply for a job that not everyone is going to be able to qualify for? So, so I applied for the job. And went on the interview. Oh my gosh, the longest interview ever. I want to say it was about 2 hours. It was a panel interview where they put me in one room, and I was interviewed by like a panel of 2 people. Then I went to the next room, a panel of 2 people. Then the next room, a panel of 2 people. And then the next station was a writing assessment.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
It was pretty intense.
Wow. So the doors just opened up for you. So let's just talk about how you ended up getting hired. It sounds like by the FAA. How did you end up getting your doctorate? Let's go to that.
Okay, so this is funny. So I ended up I realized that there was a lot that I learned along the way that allowed me to improve my grades. And so I was like, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to call it Academic Survival, Simple Strategies for Improving Your Grades.
That's where the book came from. Nice.
So the book came from Simple Strategies for Improving Your Grades. And as I was putting my name on the cover, I was like, is anybody going to take advice from me if I don't have doctor in front of my name? Because it's an academic book, right? And most of your professors, like in academia, that's a big deal, right? And so I was like, well, will any students, like, do I have the credibility? Like, I have the grades, but do I have the credibility? And that's just part of my makeup in terms of always feeling like I'm not adequate enough. Like, always like, I got to do more. And so I was like, it doesn't say doctor. It doesn't say, yeah. So, and so that was in 2000 and, I don't know how long ago it was, but it was a long time. So I want to say at least 10 or 14, anywhere from 10 to 14 years passed before I decided to go back to school, but the itch wouldn't go away.
Got it. So what was the program you entered into?
So I entered into, I have a doctorate in public administration, but let me tell you, I was not going to go the public administration route. I was actually trying to go to Talbot. Can you believe that?
Yes, I can.
I wanted to go to Talbot. I was like, I'm going to get a doctorate in I don't even know what it was.
Theology, Bible.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yes.
And then so I started the process of applying for the school, and because my none of my master's work, my my bachelor's work, none of it is in the area of like biblical scholar theology. Like none of it is in that area. So I was going to have to do all these prereqs. I was like, I am not about to get another master's degree just so that I can get a doctorate. That's not going to happen. So I decided to like look at where I went. Oh, and one of I remember my dad's wife had said, well, why don't you get a doctorate in public administration? I was like, is that a thing? I didn't know it was a degree. So I jumped on the Google machine and found a doctoral program in public administration at the University of Laverne. And so that's where I ended up going. I applied there and went through the interview and got accepted, and I started that program in 2010 is when I started that program.
Well, it would be fun to explore, all the particulars of what you had to do to land that doctorate that enables us now to put that doctor on the front of that book. But I want to jump in a little bit to what you're doing with this podcast. So let's switch to that a little bit, and let's start with identifying some of the challenges that you see facing 18, 19, 20-year-olds now as they think about a college career. What are some of the things you see them facing as barriers and boundaries that need to be overcome?
Well, so a couple of things. One is a big barrier is financial. Mm-hmm. It's expensive to go to college, so that's a barrier, a hurdle. There's another one, which is just the academic rigor, like to go from high school to college. We treat college freshmen as though they're adults. And I read an article very recently, and it was dealing with mental health, the mental health challenges that college freshmen face. And they said that the difference between a high school senior and a college freshman is 3 months. Like we're expecting.
Think about it.
Like,
think about it.
Now you're an adult. Like now and it's just 3 months. So we're expecting them to have it all together, and they don't.
So part of it is, how prepared are they given their high school experience? Have they been really, really given, the tools to be able to achieve?
Yeah. And we know that not all high schools are created equally, right? Your high school is the quality of the high school education that you have in many cases is based upon the neighborhood, right? That's why people are looking for a house. They're like, I want a house in a neighborhood with a good school, with the good, what's the school district, right?
Yes.
So, there's that. And so you have some students who leave high school very much prepared. Like some of the students that I did interview had a couple of students who, entered college with so many, like over a semester's worth of credits because of the AP classes that they were able to take in high school. Well, what if your high school doesn't have AP classes?
Right.
Like my high school had one AP class.
Wow.
That's it. History. And I took it and I couldn't hang. I was like, I got to get out of here. I could not hang. I think I got a C, after the first semester. And I was like, I need to be put in a regular history class, please.
Yeah. So being prepared. And then once we're on campus, it involves a whole lot of things. And, gosh, this has been so good. I'm seeing the clock. I got to respect your time, but I do want to get in, Shandra, one of the key ideas, one of the key concepts in your book that kind of speaks to what we're talking about here. And you call it the academic self-discipline system, and self for you is kind of like an acronym for 4 stages and 4 parts to the process. And I love the first one. The first one is you got to learn to speak up. Talk to that one first.
Yes. So fortunately for me, learning to speak up was something that came very easy for me, but I had to, well, I shouldn't say it came very easy to me. I had to channel it the right way because you know, speak up is a lot different from talk back. And I kind of had a mouth on me.
Okay. Tell us the difference. What's the difference between
I was
speaking up and talking back?
Oh yeah. I used to give teachers a rough time when I was, especially in junior high school. Oh my gosh. I just always had something to say. Just mouthy. And in some cases, disrespectful. But primarily because I had felt disrespected.
Mm.
But so now for me, so learning to speak up and speaking up in a way where you're advocating for yourself. So for me, what happened was, because of my poor math test taking skills, I didn't have the kind of math classes that I needed in order to go to college.
Mm.
And so when I got to high school, I was not put in college prep math. And so the second year of high school, I was still not put in college prep math. And so the third year of high school, I was put in some other class that was going to take me 2 years to have would be equivalent of 1 year, the first year of college prep math. And I was like, this is not going to work. So I ended up speaking with a counselor. I found a counselor, not my assigned counselor, but a counselor that I knew was going to who's mostly known for being like an advocate. And I asked him, I was like, I need to be put in college prep math. I need I need algebra. I need algebra 1. Like, I'm trying to get into college. I will not get in if I'm going to be behind as it is. But the track that you guys have placed me on, I'm only going to have 1 year of college prep math. I can't get into college with that. And so, just speaking up for myself, recognizing that like I have a goal and the path that I'm currently on is not taking me in the right direction or is not taking me there fast enough. So I had to speak up. And part of being able to speak up is you have to have a goal. Cause what are you speaking up about? Right.
Yeah.
So you have to have a goal.
Yeah. So I hear you saying that, if you've got a goal and you know what you want, you need to kind of learn enough to find out what it's going to take, but also understand that even a guidance counselor or a teacher or someone who supposedly has your best, your well-being in mind may not necessarily even know what you need. You may need to be able to say, this is what I need to do. You need to help me get that.
Yes, especially if you're in like for me, my high school, especially if you're in a high school where it's not a rigorous, like it's not rigorous, it's not necessarily a college prep, school. And so if the teachers don't know, if the guidance counselors are not aware that that's what your goal is, then it's going to be that much harder for you, for you to get there without speaking up. And so that's one thing, but also I could also share with you speaking up in the context of once I was in college, I still had to speak up. I remember having a class where, there was an assignment, it was a criminal justice class, and there was an assignment, and, I went to go speak to the professor during his office hours about this assignment. Oh my gosh. He told me so much information about his expectations of that assignment that was nowhere in the syllabus. Like there wasn't a rubric for it. There was just like, how else would I have known that this is what you wanted had I not gone to his office to actually tell him? And so, so that's speaking up in a way that's just making your presence known and
get to know the teacher, get to know the counselors, get to know who they are. There's one other thing you talk about endurance, which I think is just so critical, is the awareness that you're just going to have to stick to it for a while. You're just going to have to do that. But then one more thing I want to talk about before we wrap up is you talk about letting go. What do you mean when you say let go? So S in self is speak up, E is endurance, L is let go.
Yes, let go, and the F stands for focus. Well, letting go for me, that was, remember when I shared with you the expectation where this it was actually a teacher's aide who said that your freshman year is your best year, and
yes.
that is downhill. And it's like not accepting that, like letting that go. And also letting go for me of this struggling freshman image that I had that was real, right? But, having to like let that go and redefine, what being a student was going to look like for me. So literally I was like, I had straight A's, like on Post-its, like around the house, like any kind of like positive affirmation. Like I had stuff all over the place. And then I was like, I did everything I could. I had homework with me all the time. I had flashcards. I just literally had to like immerse myself in studying because that's what it took for me. Because remember, I wasn't a fast reader.
Right.
And so that also looked like was, I had a job, like after my freshman year in college, I got a job during the summer. And then when school was back in session, I tried to keep that job and do school at the same time. And for me, I couldn't because it was taking everything that I had to stay on top of the homework assignments. So letting that go.
Yeah. So when we jump into that arena, we're pretty soon going to find out that there are things that we think about ourselves, things that we believe about ourselves, expectations that we have that are really standing in the way of us accomplishing what we're there to accomplish. And we just got to figure out how to let it go. Shandra, this has been such a great conversation. I love this. I'm so excited about what you're doing. And even listening to your podcast, it really helps me understand where all this can go. And I've already got some ideas of people that I'd like to have to get to know you, to help get over some of those difficulties. And when I just think about the students that you have already helped in your life and the ones in the future who will be helped to achieve these things, I get pretty excited with you. Tell us how we can find you. How can people get hold of you and learn more about what you do and about the podcast? Tell us how to get through to all of that.
Okay, so there's a couple of ways. So if you want to hear the podcast, you can go to academicsurvival.com. And that's where the podcast is I don't know. How do I say that? That's what the podcast is. academicsurvival.com. You'll have to edit that.
And I have to tell everybody, your book, which there's a little book, it's entitled, How to Improve Academic Self-Discipline so that you can, yes, go for it. So you can avoid feeling overwhelmed. It's right there on the website.
So academicsurvival.com is where the podcast is.
Yep.
Now, I also do like training, coaching, and that is on ShandraLMcDonald.com. Now, both websites talk to each other. So there's links you can get from one side.
One to the other. Yep.
So, but on that one is where people can download that free PDF on the self-discipline.
That's right. It's right there. I was able to download mine, and I'm going to pass it around. It's just great stuff. Well, I can't commend you and your work more than we are right here. And thank you so much for Shandra, for taking time with the Beached White Male here on the Beached White Male podcast.
Oh man, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
On academicsurvival.com, if you go to that website, there is a little microphone on the website, and people, if they press that little microphone, they could actually send me a voice message.
Oh, so you know what? I see it. I've got it right in front of me. That's a great little feature.
Yeah, so people can just leave a little message, give me some ideas on what you might want to hear. For academic survival, because I am open to filling requests, because at the end of the day, the show really isn't about me, it's about you. Nicely put.
Thank you so much, Shandra. You have a great rest of the day, and we'll look forward to talking again before long. Thank you.
Thank you. It was great being here.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Shandra. You've got such a great story, and we're going to make sure that people know how to get through to you on your websites, to download your book, and maybe even engage you as a coach. right, then, that's a wrap for Season 4 and Episode 2. Dr. Shandra McDonald, Academic Survival. So glad you joined us today. I especially want to extend a warm welcome to you who are with us for the very first time. Glad you're here. You can learn all about us at my website, thebeachdwhitemail.com, and I'd love to hear from you. Not just you, but our regulars, too. You can reach me at kenk@thebeachdwhitemail.com. And know that you can find us on all of your podcast platforms. Just do a search, Beached White Male. You'll find us. And when you get there, subscribe. Love for you to leave a comment and a rating. Most of you listen on Apple Podcasts, but we've got others on Spotify, Amazon, and all the others too. Know that you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook, Beached White Male, and Twitter @BeachedMale. Hey, I want to say thank you to Ben Sound for our soundtrack today, and know that there's lots more coming. So stay tuned and watch for those alerts. So until next time, this is Ken Kemp, the Beached White Male, saying, stay strong, keep healthy, and stay curious. Bye-bye.